started writing, or when I first started publishing after my first few projects, I used to do this thing where I took the time to kind of think through, what did I learn from that project? What did I learn from that writing process? This was very much focused on my craft, and it was a very serious endeavor for me. I used to even blog about it, and I'll have to go back and see if I can find some of those, because I actually don't remember like really what those lessons were. The information was retained, but not necessarily the exact thing. But long story short, I ended up stopping. As much as I think writers are always learning, always growing, it wasn't always a new lesson every time. Eventually, it became more about refining what I learned from the lessons. Especially once I got to around 10, 20 projects, there just could not be that many lessons. It became more about developing what I learned and building on the previous lessons so that I was always honing and always growing. Life is kind of like that too, the reinforcement and application of these things that our parents, teachers, whoever else have tried to instill in us, Schoolhouse Rock or whatever else. There's always this growth process. We're always shifting. As an example, I don't read as much as I used to. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is actually pretty relevant to the podcast, not this episode, but just in general. It's relevant. My point in bringing it up is that this is a shift or a development that I actually think about often because I don't like it. Like I said, it's at the forefront of my mind often, and it involves this constant questioning of why, how did I get here? Why am I still here? How do I move past this place? The change is not always positive. We're not always growing towards something good for us or anyone else. And it takes a lot of introspection and self-awareness to be keen enough to the process that you can kind of make those interruptions so that you can be an active part and you don't just have these things happening around you, because you don't exist in a vacuum. You're not always the main character in every situation, but you're certainly the main character in your own life. Don't worry, this is not a self-help podcast. I am not about to go left on you, not too far left. I maintain that we are all characters. We all have these roles that we've cast for ourselves, or maybe others have cast for us. Very often we're defined by our relationship to people, what we mean to them or don't mean to them. Sister, friend, ex, classmate, mother, that bitch from down the street that I don't like. We're all something to someone. We're characters, constantly shifting. And it's not just real life. It ties into fiction as well. I'm a writer. I write romance novels with all black casts. You have these women characters who, through the course of their book or their story, they are shifting. They are developing. Does that sound familiar? And that's not to discount who they are or what they already are at the beginning of their book. But we come to the book to see the change. They're becoming mothers or becoming widows or becoming lovers. They're making these transitions that we use as entertainment. When I do read, I read a lot of romance. I've read a lot of romance. And yes, you enjoy the intimate scenes, the sex scenes. All of that is great. And the relationship is great. But what I find myself even more drawn to is the parts of the book where we're getting to know the characters. These other parts of who the heroine or the hero is, the stuff that makes them who they are, the things that develop them into characters that are not just flat on the page. They explode from it. They're lively, even if they're not bubbly. They don't have to be bubbly. They could be mean. They could be, really quiet, whatever. But that development makes them feel alive. They're very real, very three-dimensional, and that is my favorite kind of character to read. It's my favorite kind of character or person to experience. It's probably the kind of person that we all want to be when people experience you. You don't want to be flat on the page. Now that I have all of that out of the way, again, this is not going to be a self-help podcast. That's not the vibe at all. I am not qualified for that. My self-decided expertise is in fictional characters and their development. Each week, I will talk about a character I've already written or a character that I am in process with. I am going to talk about them like they are real, and I am going to dig into the makings of them. I'm going to dig into what I learned from the experience, how it developed my character and my craft. I will also get into what I hope others, the reader, took from the experience. I really love to bring along some of my peers from the Black indie romance community, meaning my fellow writers and probably some readers as well, bloggers, reviewers, all of that. With my fellow writers, we are going to talk about their experience in character development, both fictional and otherwise. With readers, reviewers, we'll talk about some of our favorite characters and how they have maybe molded and shaped us, or maybe just the things we love about them. And more than anything, we're just gonna have a good time. This is just the intro. Stay tuned for what follows, and in the meantime, keep developing.